All right, welcome everyone to the Students of Storrs podcast presented by UCTV. This is episode number 9 in our first emergency podcast. I'm your host, Jake Ferrari, joined today by fellow UCTV sports member Matt Goepfert. Matt, how you doing?
Doing pretty well, Jake. Some exciting news to try to take my mind off finals. How are you?
I am also doing well. This was some great news to wake up to. Rolled over in bed, checked my phone, had a bunch of notifications. I didn't believe it at first, and I went to Twitter, and everyone was talking about it. And of course, we're talking about Adama Sanogo, the latest commit landed by Dan Hurley and the UConn men's basketball team. Now, little disclaimer: I'm going to pronounce it Sanogo. I've also heard Sanogo. Not really sure what it is. I'm sure we will find out soon enough. But it's been Sanogo in my head for a while, so I'm just going to roll with that. Is that okay with you?
I'm also Team Sanogo.
So. All right, Team Sanogo it is. So, little background on Sanogo for those who might not be too familiar with his recruiting process. He's actually a member of the class of 2021, but he's planning on reclassifying to 2020 in order to play for the Huskies next season. ESPN had him ranked at number 28 in their 2021 top 60 prospects, and 247 Sports has him ranked 49th. Now he's kind of a power forward and a center, plays a little of both. His coach said today that he projects him more as a 4, standing at 6'9", and he weighs about 241 pounds. Now for some more on-the-court stuff, via 247 Sports, little scouting report here says that he's a strong, tough post prospect. Sanogo impacts the game with his energy, rebounding, and physical play in the paint. He has a sturdy, wide build and just okay athleticism. Sanogo consistently plays hard and leaves his mark on the backboard. To go with his motor, Sanogo loves to compete, has fine hands, decent touch around the basket, and is confident in facing up defenders and attacking out of the high post. So, given all of that, given what we know about the build of this team and the build in the future, what are your initial reactions to the news of Sanogo committing?
Well, like you said earlier, you rolled over in bed and you saw he committed. And it was the same thing for me. And, the funny thing is, last night I kind of, instead of studying, of course, I kind of fell down a hole, an Adama Sanogo hole, where I was just looking up, I was reading all these articles, looking at all these tweets, and, things said next few weeks. So, of course, a little caught off guard, but overall just super excited. I just, as via 247, he's just a piece that UConn needs so badly. And now it's kind of like this roster is really complete, doesn't really have a blatant weak spot now with his addition and, immediate impact he can make.
Yeah, this all seemed to come together really quickly. They'd been talking about Sanogo a little. It seemed like, they weren't really focused on him before, but, as the whole, grad transfer process went along and weren't really connected with anybody, it seemed more and more like that they were targeting him. And, initially you heard he was going to commit in the middle of the summer. And then, starting, beginning of last week, hearing things that, hey, probably coming sooner rather than later. And then, this morning, bam, there he is. He's a UConn Husky. And like you said, I think he is the exact perfect fit for this year's team. I was talking to some of my friends towards the end of last year, and we were asking, if you could add, one player to last year's team in terms of fit, who would it be? And my answer was Jeff Adrian, somebody who is like a solid rebounder, real big, real strong looking, and good with his back to the basket. And that is what I think Adama Sanogo projects to be sort of like. His coach said he's really, really good within 5 feet. The Huskies really don't have somebody that is like that with their back to the basket. Whaley's more of like an energy guy, crashing the boards, getting the putbacks. And, Carlton's touch isn't really great. So he fills an immediate need there. I also think that he fills the sort of, strength and toughness that, I think CV is kind of leaving behind. He fills that hole. And you can tell that Dan Hurley is embracing the classic UConn identity of being a team that's going to block shots and rebound the hell out of the ball. Back under Jim Calhoun, UConn was always the top shot blocking team in the nation, of course, the top rebounding team in the nation, and it looks like that they're getting back to that identity.
Yeah, you just touching on that, I mean, from Hurley year 1 to Hurley year 2, you saw the huge improvement in defense. I mean, a lot of that thanks to a Cook, and how good Isaiah Whaley could be, especially on the hedge and the double team and the full court press. So yeah, to bring him in, you're really getting back to a strong rebounding team. They needed a big man badly. You like the last few years, it's kind of just been, we have great guards, but you never really got a big man that, not to say Isaiah Whaley can't play great next season, but a big man that is being recruited as a really high recruit that has a really, really high ceiling. And like you said, with how great he could be on the defensive end of the ball, and also obviously on the boards. I mean, if you put him and Richie Springs on the court together, good luck grabbing a rebound to the other team.
And not only that, but UConn was already one of the top offensive rebounding teams in the country last year. And then you're adding Richie Springs, who Hurley has said is one of the best natural offensive rebounders that he's ever coached. And then Sanogo, who by all accounts is also an awesome offensive rebounder. So that is certainly exciting for UConn fans. They're going to be torturous on the offensive glass next year. But like we said, there are some bigs here still, of course. Richie Springs will be debuting next season as a redshirted freshman. And then the Huskies, of course, have 2 seniors in Josh Carlton and Isaiah Whaley. And also Javonte Brown-Ferguson not getting as much hype, but he is on the roster, 7'1", obviously their tallest player. How do you think Sanogo fits in with all these pieces?
I think it's, that starting spot now. It's kind of, you look at Carlton, and it was already Carlton's spot to lose to someone else. And now it's really Carlton's spot to lose, and Sanogo's spot to win. He just has so much upside. He's going to come in and immediately be the best rebounder on this team. And like you said, he's great around the rim. He has a great finish. He could finish with both hands. And like you said, Carlton can be less than subpar sometimes. His footwork can kind of need some work. Sometimes he just looks a little lost out there. So I think, Sanogo can really, play himself into a starting role, either, if not right away, within I don't think it will take that long.
Yeah, I agree. And, now seeing the scholarship grid and taking a look at like the whole picture, Dan Hurley's going to have some real tough decisions to make in terms of who he's going to start. And, maybe this is going to start a conversation about, the starting lineup as a whole. I don't know if we'll go down that road. But, I mean, honestly, there are 10 guys on this team that you could start, and I would be, like, perfectly comfortable with it. RJ Cole, Jalen Gaffney, Bouknight, obviously, Andre Jackson, Tyrese Martin, the transfer from URI, if, presuming that he has gotten the waiver, Tyler Polley, a Cook when he comes back, Isaiah Whaley, Carlton, and now Sanogo. I mean, that's 10 guys, and you're not even thinking about Brendan Adams, who averaged 7 points off the bench last year, and Richie Springs, who is going to want playing time too. So this is a team that is truly 12 deep, and it's going to be interesting to see, how Hurley budgets all the minutes, trying to keep guys happy while also trying to put the best product on the floor. Hurley has said in the past that he likes to have the freshmen kind of earn their spots in the starting lineup. I mean, he didn't start Bouknight last year until Polley went down in early January. And the only reason a Cook started, I'd say, is because he had that extra semester to practice, with the team. Right. Got to establish himself in practice. Hurley had a better sense of who he was. And then you had another layer with, hey, how long are they going to be able to practice, if COVID-19 persists into the fall? Like, is he going to be able to get good enough look at Andre Jackson and Sanogo to be able to determine, who the starter is going to be? So if I had to predict a starting lineup right now, based on all of that, I would say it's going to be Cole running the point, Bouknight at the 2. I'm going to throw Tyrese Martin in there just because he's kind of a veteran presence. I think he and Pauly will, take the 3 and the 4 spot. And again, this is assuming that Pauly has returned from injury. And then, you said it's Carlton's spot to lose. I think he lost it already. I think he lost it. I don't know how you don't start Whaley after what he did towards the end of last year. I mean, he was just a beast, quite frankly, towards the end of the season. Now, that doesn't mean that, that's going to be the starting 5 the whole year. Obviously, things change this year with injuries, but, I think they probably would have changed without injuries too. I think by the end of the season, Hurley's going to give Pauly the chance to prove that he's, the player that we saw in that Tulane game, that he's going to be, all over the board. He's going to be crashing the rim, getting hoops inside, not just an outside shooter who's going to take, 6 or 7 threes a game. If Pauly can prove that he's taken the step up, then, maybe he'll stick around. But if not, I think in Big East play, you could definitely see Sanogo grabbing a spot in that starting lineup. Especially because he does add that strength and toughness that is so typical of Big East basketball.
Yeah, and I think, with Tyler Pauly, I think, like you said, he needs to play inside more. But I think that's the problem. When he would play at the beginning of the season, when Carlton's at the 5 and Pauly would start at the 4, it's kind of like when he got towards the paint, at least for me, you didn't really see that. You didn't see much toughness. He said, he needs to work on his rebounding. And to me, he just never seemed like a true inside player. Like he's more of, unfortunately, like a small forward that is going to put up some threes. But I always found that as a liability because he was always started as a 4. So now, at least with, Adama Sanogo coming in, Pauly can kind of, get pushed a little bit more to that 4 spot. To that 3 spot. Or if we're going to, Hurley likes to play a 4 guard lineup, or, if he wants to play 3 guards and then Pauly because he could shoot the 3 and stretch the floor and then put in a 5, like Whaley or Sanogo or something like that. Then yeah, but like you said, there's a lot of possible starters on this team. I feel like Tyler Pauly, at least for me right now, has kind of fallen out of the conversation just because I think there's so much of that athleticism that Hurley has been trying to build onto this team. If I had to guess a starting 5 right now, like I said, depending on the game, because if it's a bigger team, you're going to want 2 bigs, but Hurley really likes that 4 guard lineup. I would say, obviously it's going to be, like you said, RJ and Bouknight are 2 locks. And then I think opening night, yeah, Tyler's on because, like you said, veteran presence. I would say he's a better lock to start over Andre, but how long is that going to last depending on how well Andre can play off the bench and play himself in some minutes. And then I'd say, maybe you see, maybe Hurley does start the season with 2 bigs and maybe say, Whaley and Sanogo earned it. I could see that, or I could see him saying, Whaley is the vet, and maybe he puts Whaley at the 5, even though he's not a true 5, and maybe Jalen Gaffney, who in that 4 guard lineup really earned his spot. Maybe he starts, something like that.
And the way that Hurley's been raving about Jackson, like I could easily see him starting, like especially because I think Jackson brings what Bouknight didn't have coming out of high school, which is like a good defensive presence. And Bouknight's still working on his defense now, but I think Jackson is more polished on defense, and that might be more appealing to Hurley. Regardless, like this is a good problem to have, especially looking back to a few years ago when, the depth was minimal to say the least. And even looking back at last year when they were forced to play 7 guys,
7 guys.
A lot of that was due to injury too. But Dan Hurley is going to have a lot of tools. And I always say this, but this is how Dan Hurley likes to play, with deep lineups, because then you can play his pressure defense. You can afford guys fouling if they have to. You can afford them playing their butts off for however long they're on the floor, and then there's somebody on the bench that's going to be able to come out there and do an effective job as well.
Yeah, especially in the rough and tough Big East. Like you said, And looking back at last season when they were down to 7 scholarships, it sucked because Hurley had to stop with that full court press. He loved to do that early in the
Mm-hmm.
season when he had a lot of bodies to
And it
use.
worked.
And it worked. It worked a lot. But then he had to back off it because you don't have the bodies. A team like Houston last year, when they played at Gamble, they really had a shot. If they could have got UConn to foul more, they could have turned and won that game. But like you said, with so much depth, it's going to create a lot of good competition. A great problem to have compared to last year. Are some guys going to be unhappy? Maybe, but if Hurley's bringing these guys in, they kind of know what they're in for. I think all it does is you're going to have some fiery practices. You're going to have some super competitive practices. That's what, and you know what? That only makes the team better, obviously. And it's, that's obviously just something to look forward to because the team's only going to be better when it counts then.
And, everybody in the starting lineup, whoever that may be, is always going to have to be looking in the rearview mirror because they're going to know that there is somebody there who has enough talent. If they work hard enough in practice, they can take their starting spot. So that means you have to play really perfect in game if you want to hold on to that starting spot.
Yeah, and I think, like last year, a lot of the fans drew, discontent pretty quick for Hurley, not wanting to change the starting lineup, loss after loss after loss. You see how long it took him to take Al-Tariq out of the starting lineup, and then he finally did, and Gaffney got his chance, and Al-Tariq kind of settled into his role on the bench, and things got much better. And I think Hurley kind of looking back can see the mistake he made with being so frugal about it, and I think this upcoming season he just has the opportunity to say, you know what, I can yank you real quick if you're not ready to be in the starting 5. He really has that option this year. He doesn't have to wait on that.
Yeah. Now, before we carry on the conversation, we want to take a moment to remind you that Gansett Wraps is still open for business. Gansett, located at 12 Royce Circle in Storrs, Connecticut, is offering curbside pickup as well as a delivery service during normal hours. Please consider supporting a local business during these hard times. For more information, head to www.gansett.wraps.com, check them out on Facebook, or download the Gansett Wraps app. So, obviously, UConn going back to the Big East, beat out a fellow Big East school, Seton Hall, for Mr. Sanogo, which I'm sure Seton Hall fans are pretty angry about. Their coach told the media that Sanogo told him 3 weeks ago that he was heading to Seton Hall, and then in comes Hurley and company, and a couple Zoom calls later, and Sanogo will be playing in Storrs next year, playing Seton Hall twice a year for however long. But still not going to be an easy road for UConn in the Big East. Now, looking at across college basketball, the writers, all the different rankings and stuff, the consensus seems to be, before the Sanogo commitment, that UConn was, just outside the top 25 heading into the season, kind of in the 30 to 40 range, most likely. All the things on the Big East that I've seen in terms of, the potential Big East standings generally puts UConn around 4 or 5, somewhere in that range. Does this commitment alter your expectations for next year's team at all?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like you said, a lot of the preseason way too early rankings had UConn in the 30 to 40 range, or maybe they just missed the top 25. I think this puts UConn in a position where you could expect them to be in the preseason top 25. And if they're not, they'll work their way into the top 25 pretty quick once the season gets going. As far as the Big East, like you said, 4 or 5 seems like a safe bet, and then 4 was kind of like, oh, if they really play well, they can get they can grab 4 because the Big East is no joke. But I think maybe you can bump it up a spot and say, all right, hey, if they play really well, they could get 3, and then 4 should be what regular you'd expect them to get. But it also kind of depends on they've said Poly is going to be ready for the start of the season. is he going to be ready as in he can just, play and he got the doctor's note to say he could play, or is he ready that he's going to be able to really hit the ground running and, actually, make a big contribution, make a big splash. Same thing for a Cook. A long time ago, they were talking about a Cook. Hey, hopefully he can get back for Big East basketball. And then a week or two ago, I think, it came out that a Cook might be ready for, I believe it was like November ball or December ball. So that too, that could be huge. Because for me, that obviously, I mean, for everyone, that changes the outlook on, what your expectation for the team would be. An extra month and a half of a Cook, that could change a lot.
Yeah. On a Cook, I think now with Sanogo, you wait until you know that he is absolutely 100%, not 95%, not 90%, 100%, because you can afford to keep him out, maybe even for the whole season if necessary, if you're not certain that Achilles, like you need to know that he is ready to be back in game action, and you have the insurance policy now of Sanogo, of depth in the front court. So I think if there's any attempt to rush a Cook back, that's a huge mistake on their part. But of course, I'm sure they'll do what's in best interest for him. In terms of expectations for next year, I think that they have a chance of being a top or a preseason top 25, towards the back end, obviously. But, I think they'll definitely see themselves in the top 25 at some point throughout the season. And this just raises the bar now because it almost feels like there's kind of a window here, right? Because who knows how long James Bouknight is going to be around. And, obviously James Bouknight is a bona fide superstar. He's going to be the guy next year. You got to make the tournament while he's around. So there's no more of this, hey, we're rebuilding. This is a rebuilding program. You got to make the tournament. You got to be at least, 500 in Big East play. Like, there's no more time for excuses. They have the talent. They won last year. They know how to win now. Now you got to make the tournament and, have a real strong season.
Oh, for sure. And, like you said, with the window and the expectations, I mean, right away when Dan Hurley, came to UConn, I think a lot of people pegged year 3 is the year that you're really going to see something. And, last year when they were going on that excruciating run of losses and throwing games away in the last, 3 minutes, I know I started to question, can year 3 for Hurley really be the year that, everything kind of comes together? Because I understand it's going to take some patience, but look at all these losses. When are we going to start learning from this? And then, I ate my own words, because then you saw the team turn it around middle of the season, really come together and play so much better. And then that's when, everyone said, okay, this, year 3, there's huge expectations. Then you add Sanogo and the expectations only get bigger. You feel like the team really has all the pieces to make it work. And another thing, how you said a Cook, no need to rush him back. Same thing for Poly. I mean, obviously his 3-point shooting, but RJ Cole can kind of help with that. But Poly, if he is ready by the beginning of the year, that's great. But like I said, is he ready where he can, really, really play ready? Or is he ready where, maybe he needs to come off the bench and slowly work into it? Because if that's the case, now that's fine. You don't have to worry. You have a surplus of bigs.
Yeah. Let me say this about Dan Hurley. Comes into UConn. They got violations for recruiting or whatever under Ollie, coming off a few dreadful years, from the past regime. Look at the talent that he's pulled in the past 2 years alone. I mean, the fact that he's been able to do that, while in the AAC, without any track record of success at UConn, the fact that he's been able to pull in, he's pulled in Bouknight, Andre Jackson, now Sanogo, Gaffney, a Cook. I mean, all these top 100 guys. Like, this guy knows what he's doing, clearly. I think there was a little resentment towards Hurley from the UConn fan base, in early January when they opened up conference play, with those two bad losses to Cincy and South Florida. I think those people are starting to eat their words now, because when this coaching staff sets their mind on getting a guy, it seems like there's nobody that can get in their way. Nobody's going to stop them from getting him. And once they start winning, once they start making the tournament consistently, once they've established themselves as one of the beasts of the Big East, imagine the talent that's going to come through the doors then.
Oh, it's so exciting to even think about that they haven't even played a game in the Big East yet. And, that now they can already get this kind of recruiting. And it's, you look at guys like, now you look, ahead to 2021, and you look at guys like Hunter Salas. They've been on his radar for a while. And 2020, even 2022, Donovan Clingan is a Connecticut kid that they had been on ever since anyone even knew who he was. And I think, that's another person that it's like, if they can, this is a kid that they should grab. They should have already grabbed him if they were in the AAC, because they've been on him forever, and he's a Connecticut kid, and you can't let a kid in your state get away like that. But it's so exciting to even think of what he can do beyond this year for recruiting. Having, I believe it's 4 spots open for 2021, 2020, 2021, I believe, and then if Bouknight leaves, that would be 5 if I'm getting the numbers right.
I think it's 3 and 4, because you got the 3 seniors, and then
you're right. Yep.
If you expect Bouknight,
it is 3, and if Bouknight leaves, it'd be 4. Yep, you're right.
Yeah. Either way, I like that Hurley has established that we're going back to getting the local guys, the guys that are from the Northeast, the guys that want to play in the Big East.
Yeah.
Talent there, and getting those Connecticut guys like, Chris Smith back in the day was the first big recruit from Connecticut to stay in Connecticut and play for the Huskies. All-time leading scorer for UConn. Excited to see what Hurley does there. So, do you have any concluding thoughts, on the commitment about UConn basketball for next year? Anything like that?
Well, I mean, Sanogo was, and you touched on it a little bit a few minutes ago, but it really is crazy how, Sanogo a while ago, the hype was, okay, yeah, we're in on Sanogo. There was, I think, an 11-team list. And then he cut it. And then you were like, okay, yeah, we made the cut. But then it seemed like it kind of cooled down. And, you heard just a lot of Seton. You heard, okay, this is an arms race between Seton Hall and Nebraska. And, UConn is cooked. And then, Seton Hall, it's like you said 3 weeks ago, it seemed like this is their guy. This was Kevin Willard's guy to lose. I mean, the Patrick School is literally 15 minutes from Seton Hall's campus. How could they not grab this guy? And then he had, I believe it was 4 or 5 official visits to Seton Hall. He never had an official visit at UConn. He had a Zoom call, and then, they're able to pluck him away and change his mind. His conversations with Hurley, Hurley told him that if he works his ass off, they'll do a really good job with him, and that they can really help him. And obviously he wants to help the team. And, I think he said something along the lines of, he was looking for a place where he's comfortable that they can, help develop him for the NBA. And I don't know, it's just overall, it's just something you love here, and it's just great for the program, and even the program moving forward with recruiting.
Yes, UConn certainly has a good history of getting guys to the NBA. Maybe not recently, but the legacy still lives on. My only concluding thought is that I really, really hope that there is some sort of season next year, because I really want to see what this team can do once they get on the floor together. This is, easily the most anticipated season in a long time. Probably one of the most anticipated seasons ever, given the state of the program for the past 4 or 5 years. So I'm psyched. I know you're psyched. I know UConn Nation is psyched to get going. Just want to wrap it up. Thanks everybody for listening. We hope you're all staying safe out there. Things are getting crazy. Hopefully things start to get back to normal soon, and we'll be able to get UConn basketball back underway. Again, thanks for listening, and hope you guys come back and listen again.